Like that. Okay. Well, yeah. Welcome to, this is my second live reading for my first ever readathon. So if it seems shaky, that's because I don't know what I'm doing. But yeah, so what, really awkwardly, what made you decide to pick up Rebecca the first time you did?
I actually read it in school the first time, so I read it because I had to.
Okay.
And then didn't really do much else with Daphne du Maurier for quite a while. And then last year I started picking up loads of her books, which made me really want to read Rebecca again.
Okay. So have you got more of appreciation for it now, or did you actually enjoy it at school?
I enjoyed it at school, but I think I was in the middle of reading so many books at that time and reading them for like a specific purpose. I maybe didn't have as much time to like fully appreciate it. So it's nice to go back and read it with a bit more like leisure around the book.
Yeah, that's fair. What about you, Jess?
I read it because my mum and my aunt recommended it to me, and I was quite young the first time I read it. I think I would have been like start of secondary school, so like it was a bit of a daunting book for me. But they recommended that one and to make it in, and I was at that age where I was just like reading anything anyone told me about. So I just read it then and absolutely loved it from the first time, and it was one of my favorite books from then. And I think every time I've reread it, which I think is like 2 or 3 times now, I still have the same love for it each time.
That's great, because I think there are always those books that if you get them at the right age, they just become part of your personality, and part of like the nostalgia for you just drives. I think that's really that's cool, because it's really interesting you say that your aunt suggested it to you, because I know I said this to you off air, but my mum recommended Rebecca to me, which is the one reason I didn't read it, because the book that she recommended to me before that was Virginia Andrews' Flowers in the Attic. Have either of you read it?
No.
Okay, so this book is weird. It is kind of gothic, and I get the impression that it's quite like a soft gothic, but basically this really beautiful family live together. You've got a mother and a father and 4 children, and the father dies, and the mother can't afford to maintain their home, so she takes them to live with her parents. And her parents did not like the husband, and therefore do not like the kids, and they lock the children in the attic. And the kid, yeah, exactly. And that's in the first chapter. That's all just like right at the beginning. And at first the kids think, oh, okay, well, our mum is just trying to find like a new husband. We'll come downstairs eventually. But literally years pass where they're locked in the attic, and their mother stops visiting them except to like bring them food and stuff, which they leave at the front door. And they start to, like, it's really psychological, and it's really dark, and then it has weird incest themes, and it's weird. It's so weird. So after my mum was like, oh, I really liked this book, you'll like it, I was like, I'm never reading anything you suggest ever again.
Is it weird that I kind of want to read that book now?
I think you'd like it. I think like it's so beautifully written that as a kid I was just kind of like, I can see why my mum really liked this. And then as I grew up I was like, that's a weird thing to give your child to read. Especially because we've got quite a tall, thin house. Our house is old Victorian, so it's very narrow but very tall, and I'm in the attic. So I was just like, what are you trying to say? But yeah,
I hope you like Rebecca more than you liked that one anyway.
Yeah, I do too. But because like, what kind of gothic is it? Because I know there's like obviously like spooky gothics, more romantic, and then there's quite psychological. Where do you think it like falls in the spectrum?
I would say more psychological. I think if the book came out today, it would be seen as a psychological thriller or like a domestic thriller.
Yeah, I'd probably be inclined to agree. There's obviously like themes of romance and stuff in there, but I think on the whole it really is about like the psychological thing going on between a lot of the characters.
Yeah, I love that you're trying really hard not to tell me what happens, which I really appreciate, because you're just like the thing. Like, I really appreciate that, thank you. But yes, yeah, I was talking about Flowers in the Attic. It is a really good book, but it is weird. But I think only people that like gothic fiction or that kind of soft psychological will enjoy it, because it's bizarre. It's really, really bizarre, but it is good. I read all 4 of the series, so I can't have hated it that much. No, but that's cool. Okay, so shall we read then for about 20 minutes, and then I'll tell you what I think, and you can tell me whether I'm right or wrong or not.
Okay, let's do it.
But I'm starting today as well, so I'll probably be reading like in parallel with you, Hannah.
That's cool. I'm quite a slow reader, so
I'm only 35 pages in because I only started today as well. So
cool. So we're all in the same boat. Oh, I appreciate that. Thanks. The one thing I do really like, I mean, this copy is massive, just to interrupt you before we even start, but it's got really stunning illustrations in it that I'm in love with. So
I've never seen that edition before, actually.
it's the Writer's Digest one. £2 in a charity shop. How stunning is that? I know.
What edition do you have, Jess? Are you reading on a Kindle?
I'm reading on a Kindle. I had to buy it today because my old edition is the black cover one. So I had that, like, not the new black cover one, like the old one. And I had that back home, but I didn't bring it with me out here. So I had to buy it on Kindle today. But the cover for the Kindle edition is actually really nice. And they've done a new one for the Netflix film.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so I like that. What edition do you have?
I've got this one. It's a Virago modern classic one.
Lovely.
Nice.
Love that. Oh, cool.
All right, let's read.
How did you do?
I think I read like 15 pages.
Good. I got 12, so I feel better about it now.
I got to page 19, but it's kind of nice that the Kindle edition actually tells you the page number, because a lot of the time it just tells you like location, doesn't it?
Like how much percentage you've left.
But then again, it's quite fast reading. Yeah, exactly. That's a lot faster than I would expect, but I guess I kind of like the first chapter, you know, so well. Like when you've read it a million times, the first chapter's so iconic. You're like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I was really intrigued by the first chapter, especially because like so many books start with like a dreamscape, but the idea that she wakes up from the dream and almost feels nothing because she's kind of stepped away from it, but her partner can't. That in itself I find really, really interesting. I did have to Google at one point what a lorgnette was, because I was like, I don't know what that is. She keeps mentioning it. I don't know what it is. But it's
What is it?
they're the spectacles that you wear at the opera, you know, the ones on a stick.
Okay.
So when she's talking about her Mrs. Van Hopper having her lorgnette, basically it's just her like eyeing people through these spectacles, and I was like, that makes more sense now. I understand that. But yeah.
There's a lot of complicated language in it, though. In general, I think like it's very. I guess people would call it flowery, but it's
it is. Well,
nice,
it is flowery, but it's more decorative necessarily than like quite dense. Like you don't necessarily need quite a high level of comprehension to understand this, because I've got quite a short attention span. So I kind of, if I'm really struggling, I know that it's going to be quite a tricky read. So I've just tried reading The Turn of the Screw, which I want to do as an audiobook, because I feel like some parts of it are just so dense that I can't quite crack it. Whereas this, it's a lot of adjectives, but they're done in a really clever way. Like she calls the rhododendrons malicious and things like that. And I just think it's really, really clever, because it's foreshadowing and foreboding, but it's not, it's all there for a reason. You're not worried that it needed to be cut down or that it's too heavy.
Yeah.
In my opinion. I don't know if that's the case for you guys, but
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think it depends.
Is anyone else getting feedback?
I was going to say, I can't work out what it is, because I've moved my headphones. So I wasn't sure if it was me, but
I'm not hearing it, but I don't know.
I think it might be. Yeah, I think it's your headphones.
Try and change it.
Worse, I've unplugged them.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's better.
Now I can't hear you. What did you say?
I said it sounds better.
Okay, that's fine. I'll leave them out.
Cool.
So what were you going to say about the language?
I was just going to say that it varies on, I think, the person who's reading it, because I thought some of the vocabulary in it, like some of the words were complicated, and there was one word that I wanted to Google, but I didn't highlight it, so I'm going to have to go back later, and I was like, I actually don't know what that word means. So I think if you're sort of daunted by reading a book and having to Google stuff, then it could be quite heavy. But I guess it depends on you as a person.
Yeah, see, I assume that my language is not great, and therefore I'm always Googling things, so it doesn't bother me as much. We used to do it when I taught secondary school, and we taught Charles Dickens' Great Expectations, and there's a couple, like there's not a lot, but there is some language that the kids just obviously aren't familiar with. So we would do like a Google break where we'd be like, all right, pause, let's Google and like put the words up on the boards and stuff, and just have like a list of vocabulary that we needed to go through. Because I think I know that obviously the more you read, the more your vocabulary is going to grow, but it is really intimidating if you come across a lot in one go, because it's almost like you're being beaten over the head with it, and you just don't appreciate it, I think.
Yeah, because this book is so descriptive that you're bound to come across a lot of unfamiliar words, I think.
Yeah, definitely. But no, it's interesting. So have you, like, I know you've read it before. What made you decide to do the Rebecca along? Was it purely because they've got the TV serial film coming out, or was it because any excuse?
It was a Twitter thing. Like, I don't know if I tweeted about the trailer. One of us tweeted about the trailer, and then someone responded about being like, "Oh, let's do this as like a read along. We could call it Rebecca along." And then I DM'd Ciara being like, no, we should actually do that.
No, I think it's a great idea. There are so many people that have picked Rebecca for one of their Gothtober prompts, like because it fits obviously so many of them. I went for the really obvious red because my copy is super dark red. But it's been really popular this year, and I've even seen like Penguin and The Bookseller have done loads of articles on it recently as well. And I'm like, I love that it's having this resurgence. I think that's great.
It is great. I love it.
That's cool. But I don't know, is it a film or is it a TV series that's coming out?
It's a film. Netflix film, yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
It's going to be good. It's got Lily James in it. It's got to be good.
You're a fan of Lily James then? She can do no wrong. No, that's cool.
I think they need this adaptation though as well. Like it's so long overdue because the last Rebecca film, like the big one, was the Hitchcock one, which is black and white, and it's good. I think the black and white really like adds something to it, but at the same time, like when they're doing all these adaptations now, they need to do a Rebecca one. So
yeah, sure.
Well, I like I watch a lot of period dramas, and I really like the difference that the era that it was made has on the way it's kind of portrayed. So like Sense and Sensibility, the 2012 version versus the Emma Thompson version, which I think came out in like the 90s, is so different because the Emma Thompson one is very warm in palette and the characters are all really charming, whereas the 2012 one, partly from being one's a film and one's a TV series, it's shot in a lot colder colours, and you feel genuinely really sorry for Eleanor that she has to deal with these silly women all the time. The sister that doesn't quite understand that maybe hanging out with the local rogue is not a good idea, and her mom cannot keep spending money they don't have. And it just like, I just think that it is really interesting that just a little update like that and the change of colour and the process with which you make something can have a massive impact on how it's perceived by the audience. I'll stop nerding out now and just let you guys say. Let's see what you're going to say. But I find that stuff so fascinating.
No, I find it really interesting too because I actually had to read Rebecca at uni again as part of a module I did in film, and the whole thing was about the Hitchcock film. So like I found thinking about all the like kind of creative decisions that went into that really interesting, and it's especially interesting now. I'm going to be sitting there watching the adaptation, like comparing and like wondering, oh, I did it this way.
Yeah. See, I've never seen the Hitchcock one, so because I'm like often put off of like really old films. I don't know. I'm not that keen. I love watching a period drama, but I think that just feels like a little bit too old.
Yeah, I think they're not for everyone, and I think like with anything, they become really stylistic. So it's a case of you find that certain years they have very particular films. I was watching because I'm a nerd, I watch a lot of videos about films without actually having any kind of background in filmmaking or anything like that. So I just I don't know like how accurate this is, but it says something like the year 1992, there were something like 40 films that all came out where the main character lived in a cubicle, and basically the whole story is around a guy working in a cubicle. And you had things like Fight Club and The Matrix as examples, where because like we weren't in an economic crash at the time, it was before 9/11, there wasn't really any, and we'd come out of the Cold War and everything like that, there wasn't really anything going wrong, so everything was very psychological. So all the films of that era are like fall into that kind of category. And if you don't like watching a film where it's just one guy dealing with his inner demons, you're not going to like that era of filmmaking because they're all like that. And I think Hitchcock and black and white films, they were of a time, and you're either going to absolutely love them or they're just not for you. They've almost become like a genre on their own, I think.
Yeah.
Like I find that with the 80s. But go on, sorry, what were you saying?
Out of interest, do you have like a favourite period drama or like...
I find it really hard to have favorites because I end up like it changes with the mood, but probably the Pride and Prejudice 2005, just because of the flexing of the hand and Matthew McFadden. And it's just I like a lot of period drama TV series where they use it as like an element and stuff. So Miss Prying Fisher's Mysteries is a Canadian murder mystery series set in the 20s and 30s, but she's very much like a modern woman. She solves crimes even though everyone treats her like a silly woman, but she's got money, so with that comes the prestige and stuff, so she is obviously far ahead of her time. I find that really fascinating, and it's quite a fun show, and obviously like has that period drama-esque to it. Peaky Blinders, Ripper Street is also really good. I could be here all day telling you. You tell me, have you got a favourite?
I do. My favourite is a TV series. I think it was 2016, and it was the BBC mini-series of War and Peace.
That was fantastic. Yeah,
which
good choice.
Also has Lily James in it.
Oh, well, there you go.
So that was the start of the obsession, I think.
Oh, I was wrong. It's Australian. Yeah, I knew it wasn't American, but I know that they did. There's another one. I think it's called Mr. Blake, like the Blakely Mysteries or something, which is Canadian, and I think she's in it for an episode or something, which is where I'm going to. But yes, it's Australian. What about you, Jess?
I don't watch that many period dramas, although when I do, I really like them. But just the idea of them doesn't make me instantly want to watch them. I don't know why, but I would probably then have to just say like Downton Abbey, because I just love Downton Abbey.
That is a solid choice. I tried reading Belgravia, which is a book by the same guy who created Downton Abbey, and it just didn't hold up. Like, I had so much love for Downton Abbey that I think when I started reading the book, I got about 10 chapters in and was like, nothing's happening. But whilst I didn't mind that with Downton Abbey, like where you'd have like a couple of episodes where they're just kind of going through their daily struggles or whatever, that didn't bother me. But in a book format, I was like, I need something. I need something to happen now. But yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. So what kind of films do you like to watch then, Jess?
Oh God, like I'm really, really picky with everything that I watch, like TV shows, films, everything. So to be honest, if it's got an actor in it that I like, that's probably how I would decide whether or not to watch it, or if it's an adaptation of something that I'm interested in. That's probably how I would pick over something like, say, genre. Because, like I say, it's just, I don't want to sit there and get bored, and I have a really, really bad attention span. So I would pick up my phone and get completely distracted and not pay any attention at all. But one film that I did really love this year was the new Emma adaptation. I thought that was fantastic.
I haven't seen it because I had tickets to go and see it at the cinema the week before COVID lockdown happened. So yeah, didn't get to go and see it, but I really, really want to. It's out on DVD now, and I'm very close to just being like, I'll just buy it.
It's just so good.
I've heard really good things, and I really liked the BBC adaptation that they did with what's his name? He's the actor that's in Elementary. I can't remember, but he plays Mr. Knightley, and he plays it really, really well. No, completely forgotten, but that's a great version as well. But no, I want to watch that film.
Also, Little Women, the one that came out in December last year, that was amazing.
Yeah. See, I like the film adaptation so much that I was like, oh, I'm going to reread the books, because I read the books when I was at school, and then tried to reread them. And I read the first one because I know it's like split into two. I read the first one, was like, oh, everyone's just really nice to each other. Apparently, I'm just not interested unless there's, psychological drama or a murder. I just couldn't get into it. And I was like, this is awkward. Like, because I did it for the bookoplathon. I was just like, oh, this is awkward. Everyone's really nice to each other. But yeah. Oh, what am I like? Let's have a look. Okay. Is that in the characters? Is that for Emma, or is that in Rebecca?
They're talking about in Rebecca the casting of Lily James as being like maybe a bit too old, and then the Max and De Winter casting being a bit too young. So then the age gap element isn't going to be as strong as the book.
Because they don't really specify the age of the main character in the book, as far as I'm aware, but they do specify how old Maxine is, and it's like 42.
Right, okay.
And it keeps talking about how she's like so young. I think maybe she said that she's 21.
I was going to say, because in the first two chapters, she hasn't mentioned it. She just mentioned that it's just implied that there are things she wouldn't do now that she would do then. And it's almost like that kind of naivety.
Yeah, so I think it's like at least 20 years.
Child as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a chapter, one of the ones I read just while we were just reading now, and it starts with, let's see. Yeah, it was about like the fever of first love, the days when we're 21. So I think she's 21 and he is 42.
Okay. Because Pixie with Pen said the age gap definitely contributes to how unsettling the book is, which I think is really fascinating because, yeah, that's a power. Like, I think any kind of dynamic like that, there is a definite power move there that you've got to navigate, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But I haven't got there yet, so we'll have to see. I'm intrigued though. That's cool because I find
Maybe
it when.
Go on.
No, what were you gonna say? It's fine.
I was gonna say maybe the casting has been done like that because obviously Lily James is Lily James, but then for Maxim because they probably want the audience to have some kind of way of we can understand why she likes him, or like there's some kind of bond. Because if they cast someone really, really old and like more say unattractive, then the viewers probably aren't going to get it as much. So I think maybe they're just trying to appeal to that side.
Yeah, maybe. I can't remember what the reaction was when they had Michael Fassbender in Jane Eyre, because obviously I can't remember the actress's name, but I know that there was at least that there was a big age gap between the actors, but I know there's like 20 years at least between the characters as well.
Yeah.
But I can't remember if there was even a reaction to it because it was so long ago.
I don't know either, but they definitely do often age up, like, or reduce the gap, because obviously same goes in Emma, because in the book they definitely reference like how Mr. Knightley has known her since she was like a child, and the actors look very similar in age.
Yeah.
And I guess like same again for Little Women and stuff with those characters. Obviously they have the same actresses for the adult and the child parts. So
yeah, it is interesting because I mean even that as a cultural thing, because in a lot of teen dramas they don't bother. So have you guys seen it's like Never Have I Ever or something like that? Yes, that is a fantastic series. I absolutely love it. But there's 15 years between the main protagonist and her love interest that she makes out with like 8 times. There's 15 years between them.
wow.
And I was like, I found that out after I watched it, because basically Mindy Kaling was like, I really want to have an actress that is the right age, that has the right energy. They auditioned quite a few people. And then she met this girl and was just like, I absolutely want you to play this character. But they had already decided who the love interest was going to be. And he's like, I think he's like 27. And the character is not. Like, there's a big age gap. And I don't know. I really love the series, but watching it with that knowledge now, I'm like, that's weird. That's weird to me.
How old are the characters meant to be?
17, like 16, 17.
Is it an American show?
Mm-hmm.
See, that's what I was thinking. Like in American teen dramas, they often cast like old people, like in like 90210. Like some of those actors were like nearly 30, and like Gilmore Girls. Obviously, those characters look young, but a lot of the people playing teenagers were like, again, in their like mid-20s at the beginning of the series. Whereas, say in like British teen dramas like Skins or Waterloo Road or something like that, like they were all like actually the age that they were playing.
Yeah, because they put the auditions out to your local schools and say, we're going to be auditioning, we want this many 15, 16-year-olds, which is really cool. But I think it really makes a difference. And it's just interesting that there's a definite difference between how the British media handles it versus the American. And that,
interesting.
Bizarre. Right, should we read some more and then I'll stop talking at you?
Yeah, let's do it.
Problem is once I get going, I just don't know how to stop.
How long are we reading for this time?
Should we do another 20 minutes?
Cool.
How did you do?
Bit better this time. I think I read like 30 pages.
Oh, very nice.
I think I read like 20.
Oh, see, this is what I mean when I say I'm a slow reader. I read 10. But I got caught up.
Yeah, but I think it's different when you're reading.
Yeah, definitely, because you're taking everything in. And there was something, I can't remember who it was. It might have been Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin mentioned in his TBR that the main character is she never gets a name.
No.
And I'm on page 20, like I've just finished 21 and 22, where she gets the note with her name on it written perfectly, and then he tells her that she's got a beautiful and unusual name, and I'm like, what is it? And I had to double check. I was like, do I know what it is? Like, I don't. Yeah, I found that really interesting.
Yeah, it becomes, I think, more significant as you get through.
I love that. Look at that in-joke that she's having.
What was that, Jess?
Sorry, Ciara, what did you say?
I just said it's something that becomes more
I missed what you said.
Wait, I feel like
yeah.
Okay.
No, I agree. I was.
There's a slight lag. Every time you're being really polite to each other, and I was like, I'm not going to say anything because the moment I say right, Ciara first or Jess first, one of you will be talking. But yeah, Jess, what were you trying to say?
You know what? I think oh no, I remember what it was. It was kind of like Daphne du Maurier making a little in-joke of being like, oh, you've got such a nice name.
Yeah.
Haha, reader, you never
quite
find
cruel.
out.
It's kind of mean.
Yeah.
I guess also it's quite a cool subversion as well, because a lot of writers really put a lot of thought into the names that they give their characters, and sometimes, especially with like Charles Dickens and things like that, the names really, they're giving so much away of what the character is. And I guess the fact that she's constantly being compared to someone who no longer is there, and yet her name is never given, it's always putting her at a disadvantage, is quite interesting.
Yeah, I agree. It's the name or lack of name definitely is an interesting part of this book, because it kind of just, I think the main character is someone who doesn't have much confidence in themselves, and in the like various situations that they're involved in. They often feel like out of place, and like they don't really know what they want to do in the situation, or they don't feel equipped to be in the role that they take on. So I think the lack of name really sort of adds to the lack of confidence.
Yeah, and it is a lack of confidence as opposed to lack of ability, because she understands the social graces that Van der Hoort just doesn't get. So like when she's just chuntering away to De Winter and he's just like, he's not saying anything to her, and then what he does say is quite abrupt, the main character recognizes that it's an insult, that he is actively insulting her, and it just goes straight over the other lady's head. But then obviously in the next page she knocks over a vase and makes a mess. So it's kind of I guess also because she's thinking back, there's going to be that additional hindsight that she can, like, as an adult, can look back on her childish self and see those mistakes. That I think is quite interesting because it's a fractured timeline. She's obviously thinking back to it. That's quite cool. But you said her lack of name has prominence later on. Can you give me hints without telling me what happens? Or is that as far as you can go?
The further into the book that we get and the other characters that you'll be introduced to within like the next like 80 pages or so will sort of add into that sort of, they make the character's lack of confidence worse by referring back to Rebecca so often, and kind of creating that divide that makes Rebecca's name so much the more significant, and then the main character's lack of name significant as well. If that makes sense. It's like there's no like major event that happens that makes her lack of name significant, but I just think as we get to know other characters, it becomes a more prominent thing to notice.
Interesting.
I would add to that, it sort of like blurs her and Rebecca a little bit, because so many people who haven't read the book always think, oh, Rebecca, like, oh, the main character's called Rebecca, and that's like the common misconception, which is so ironic when you've read the book to look back on that thinking. So I think that's a really interesting part of it.
Yeah, that's it's used quite a lot in Gothic fiction, because if you think Frankenstein, everyone thinks that Frankenstein's the monster, and obviously it's not. It's Frankenstein's monster, although arguably Dr. Frankenstein is a monster for what he does. Yeah, so it's that kind of bridges that gap. And with Othello, the fact that Othello is not the main character in his own play, he's manipulated and everything kind of is drawn around him. I find when books are named after, or even plays are named after a character, that in itself is kind of a heads up, and like, this is not what you're expecting at all, kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, no, that's interesting. I'm really enjoying it. Like, I was really nervous because it's such a renowned book that sometimes I think if a book's got almost too many people telling you that it's going to be amazing, there's the fear that you're not going to like it, or it's not going to be accessible to you. So I'm glad that I'm like 4 chapters in and actually really enjoying it.
Yeah,
that is a relief.
I'm really enjoying it as well, because I feel like although I've read it before, it's been a long time since my last read of it, so it's like I obviously know what happens, but a lot of the detail and description is kind of like just coming back to me as I'm reading it, which is nice.
That's cool.
I think it's the kind of book you can get more out of every time you read it as well. Like, I'm picking up on things now and foreshadowing and stuff that I didn't spot on my other rereads, and I really like that.
Yeah. That's the sign of a good book, is when it doesn't matter how many times you read it, there's more layers to it. That's fantastic. That's cool. Because the thing is, like, I'm going in like completely blind. I didn't even really know what the story was. I knew vaguely that the main character marries someone and then moves to his house and things happen, but that's pretty much as vague as my understanding was. So the fact that there's all this not preamble, but the setup of her personality as a subordinate, and the fact that she's not just fighting the ghost of his wife, but the fact that there is such a disparity between them is really interesting.
I do think it's a book that would be really difficult to give a synopsis for. I don't know if you could, Jess, but like I would struggle. It's very much like character driven. It's not like, there are some major events, but I wouldn't say it's like super dramatic. It's quite like a slow drip, I would say, and it's one of them ones where like it's hard to say anything without saying too much.
Yeah.
I agree. I think there's a few scenes of like crazy drama where you're like, oh my god, I can't believe this is happening, but like the plot twist, the thriller element of it. But I think like at least the first half of it, all the build up is so slow, all of the kind of clue dropping is so slow that you're like, is this even going to thrill me in any way? Like, where's the action?
Yeah. I think it would be if it was published like today, I think it would be seen as quite literary fiction because all the conflict I feel is going to be internalized. So when I was at uni, it was kind of explained to me that it's genre fiction if the conflict is externalized. So if they've got to find something or save something or something big and dramatic happens, but if it's internalized, then that's what makes it the kind of literary fiction. You can have an entire book where someone is just doing the washing up, but if they're dealing with something internally, then you're going to have this internal conflict and plot. And I get the impression that because obviously she's speaking directly to us, and from her personal perspective, it is very internalized already. I feel like that it has that kind of literary thing, and literary is always really, really hard to say what happened. But then when you add the idea of the fact that it's going to be psychological and it's going to make you think one thing and then do something else, that always makes it more complicated. To just kind of go, I don't know what happened, but you should read it.
Yeah, 100%.
It's interesting because there's a retelling of Rebecca that came out last year or the year before called The Winters by Lisa Gabriel, and I absolutely loved it, so I would recommend it. But it's like Rebecca, but in the modern day, and if it was like set in America now, and how it will play out in terms of like age gap and power dynamics and like the plot, which I won't spoil. But I thought that was a really interesting way of looking at it now. And if it came out, like that was definitely branded as more of like a thriller. Like they definitely took those elements of it. But it is really interesting.
Interesting. I think I'll have to add that to a TBR. I should have done that as my retelling. I should have read this first and then read that, but I didn't know it existed. I ended up. I'm currently reading Yo Nesbo's Macbeth for my retelling. Because I was told that Yo Nesbo is super, super dark and gory and scary, and my fear is that I'm 2/3 the way through, and although people have died in very dramatic ways, it hasn't been super, super dark or thrillery or scary, and I'm worried that actually it has. I'm just dead inside and just haven't noticed that it has been super, super dark and thrillery. I'm like, I don't know.
But, yeah, I've never been like scared by a book, I don't think.
No, not since I was a kid with Goosebumps. But no, that's fair enough. Do you have like a favourite genre that because I know you said obviously, Jess, that you were quite picky with films, but do you have a kind of reliable genre when it comes to reading?
I would say like thrillers, any kind of mystery thriller I'm really up for. I read a lot of just like general like contemporary, whether that's adult or YA, contemporary and romance. So I like to flicker between thriller and romance. Like I'll read like a really cute, sweet story, and then I'll go back for the murder, and then I'll just keep flicking.
I like that, like almost like a tennis match between the two very distinct genres.
Yeah,
right, you, Ciara?
Oh, yeah, I feel like you've kind of hit the nail on the head, Jess, because I feel like I'm quite similar. I like thrillers because I feel like they're a good one. They don't need to be super like elevated and fancy, as long as they have a twist and they keep you on your toes. They're always a good shout. I like romances that are like maybe a little bit more like gritty, like Taylor Jenkins Reid style. And then I also just love like contemporary literary fiction. Anything that's like normal people, Sally Rooney style, or like Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine. That type of thing I really like. And also that's just cool. Like really dark books, not necessarily like spooky, but just like dark. Like I really enjoyed reading A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara earlier this year, which I know is a book that is very split on whether people can or can't read it, but like that type of thing really grips me.
That's cool. So what was the last book that kind of blew you away? That you're just like, I love it, everyone needs to read it. Or is that too tricky a question?
It's a tricky question. Do you have one, Jess?
Can you hear us, Jess?
I don't know if she can hear us.
I don't know if you can hear us.
Jess?
Yeah, my Wi-Fi is being really weird. Like it's just slowing you down. So it's like I'm hearing you in slow mo.
It was really bizarre because I could see you smiling, and it was just it was like kind of disconcerting.
Okay, I'm gonna maybe just try and like leave and rejoin because that might help. I'll be 1 minute.
Okay.
Hang on.
I'm just like running through in my head what are the recent books that I've even read. The 2 best books I've read this year have been both of Sally Rooney's books. They're like my 2 favourites.
So that's Normal People, and what was the other one?
Conversations with Friends.
That was it. Yeah, that's cool. When did which one's the more recent one? Is Normal People the more recent one, or is it?
Normal People is the more recent one, yeah. And then Conversations with Friends was her debut.
That's cool. A friend of mine, she's just got herself a publishing deal, but her comps, as in like the ones that her agents have compared her to, are Sally Rooney, and she'd never read Sally Rooney before. So I remember last time I visited her house, she's got all of Sally Rooney's like stuff and like other like comps like all over her flat so that she could read them and see what she's being compared to. Which I thought was really interesting.
I mean, so in my opinion, that is like the highest compliment.
Right? I love that. No, that's fantastic. Yeah, I need to give Sally Rooney, because the thing is, I do like contemporary, but I really, really struggle with contemporary because when the conflict is really internalized, then I struggle to kind of, oh, she's back with a vengeance. Excellent. Yeah, I struggle to kind of, I don't know, maintain my interest. I don't know. I guess if it feels too real, I just can't focus on it enough.
Yeah, I think there's enough externalized conflict and like enough relationships going on and events happening throughout the stories that it's not like too literary.
No, that's cool. I've got them on my Goodreads TBR, so I will read them eventually. I will get there. It's just at the moment I'm enjoying silly YA fantasy because that's just, I love that.
Yeah, it's always nice, something you can rely on, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the things I like. I find I'm very character driven with what I choose to read, and I tend to find that when it's character, like the YA characters are very angry and very kind of action driven. We've got 2 Jesses at the moment, so we've got.
Oh, I can only see one.
There we go. Is that better?
Right now.
I was going to say I had 2 of you in the studio, and I thought that was really bizarre.
So did you have a book that's blown you away recently, Jess?
Not really. Not in a while. I've had a bit of a slump recently. But one book that I did really enjoy recently was Loveless.
Oh, I started it and then just got distracted and haven't actually made it past like 100 pages yet. I
think it's probably her best book. Yeah, in that the writing is just really, really good in it, and I just think it's one of those books that's really strange where not a lot happens, so you don't really know why you're still so entranced by it, but you are completely entranced by it.
That's a sign of good writing, though. Surely, if you're just like, I'm still here, I'm still invested.
I'll definitely get back to it. I think it was just at a time where I had like loads of books that I had to read, and that wasn't one of them. So I just ended up putting it to one side because I just didn't have time. But I do want to read it soon.
I was like that with Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. I started it 2 months ago, and then because of like work and TBRs and stuff like that, I just didn't get a chance to finish it. And I finished it 2 days ago, and it's absolutely incredible. I loved it. I thought it was really, really cleverly put together. And because, of course, there's all the different perspectives in it. So I don't think it really matters what your background is. You're going to find one of the main characters so relatable. And it's so easy to empathise with the characters that you don't necessarily relate to because their life stories are so compelling. And it's just written, but it's quite accessible in the fact that it's broken. It does feel quite listy. It almost feels like poetry rather than straight prose in the way that it's all kind of broken down. I would definitely recommend it if you like contemporary. I really enjoyed it. And that's cool.
No, it sounds good. I think sometimes it's about having the book at the right moment, isn't it? So like coming back to it later means that you get to enjoy it that much.
Yeah. Well, I've proven that, I think, with Rebecca, because I don't think I'd have enjoyed it as much before now. But actually kind of going through like a gothic phase and then kind of having the understanding of it and enjoying the language. I'm in the mood for it now because the last couple of books that I've read have been really quite simplistic, that I feel like I'm in the right headspace for this. I feel like I'm going to finish this weekend. That's going to happen. I'll do it slowly, but I'll get there. But no, that's cool. I don't know if it's worth reading for another 5 minutes because I know that you have to shoot at 1:30. So I don't know. Do you want to read some more, or do you just want to chill for a little bit?
Jess?
No mind. Either way, it's fine.
Cool. Well, should we just read till 1:30 then? And then we'll have a quick goodbye and let you go.
Fab.
Cool. Right, it's 5:30. I'm just about to finish chapter 5, which is exciting.
I'm glad you're enjoying it.
I really am. I really am. And like I said, it's a pleasant surprise because I have been putting it off, and it has got to that stage where either I was going to love it or hate it, and I really didn't want to end this life by being like, yeah, that's it, it's going on the shelf and never picking it up again. But no. But thank you both for joining me. I really appreciate it, especially as we've never chatted before. Yeah. I really appreciated that.
It's been fun. Thank you.
Anytime. Did you want to mention your Dark Academia book club?
Yes. Seeing as we're all here chatting about Gothic books, I just wanted to mention that I run a book club called the Dark Academics Book Club, along with a few other booktubers. We usually read one book a month and then have a live show on one of our channels. But this month, because it's October, we're reading 2 books, which is The Phantom of the Opera and also The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. And we're doing a live show on my friend Mary's channel at the end of the month, which will actually be on Halloween. So if you want to finish off your spooky month with a fun discussion about dark books, then you can join us over there.
Sounds absolutely perfect. I'll get all the details from you and I'll stick them in the description and on the Twitter so that people can find it nice and easy. I mean, I'm sure they've already know it. I've got no doubt they already know who you are. But I thought I'll make it nice and easier for them to find.
Thank you.
Can I also mention our Rebecca Long watch along part of it, which we're doing when we watch the adaptation together, and we're going to be seeing live tweeting as we watch the film for the first time. So we're doing that on the 22nd at 7 p.m. UK time, and then the day after, on the Friday, we're going to do a live show at 7 p.m. as well, and we're going to chat about what we thought about the film, what we thought about the book, and comparing it and stuff. So if you're around on the 22nd and 23rd of the month, come and join us.
I'm putting that in my diary. That's officially in my diary. I'm not doing anything on either of those days. So live watch of Rebecca. It's in.
Yay.
Yes.
There you go. I was like, I'm not going to forget that. It's going to go straight in. But thank you again so much for coming along. I hope you have a really nice evening. And I'll catch everyone else next time.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, guys.